It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. I'm Barnaby, 46, an IT specialist in Austin, Texas. My wife, Gwendoline, and I had been married for 18 years. We had a comfortable life, a nice house in the suburbs, and two teenage children, Linus and Clementine. I always considered us happy, or at least I thought we were. But then, about 6 months ago, things started to change. Gwendoline, usually so open and communicative, became withdrawn. She started spending more time on her phone, often giggling or smiling at something on the screen, but she'd quickly hide it when I came near. Our conversations became shorter, less frequent, and lacked the warmth they once had. She started going out more, claiming she was meeting friends for drinks or attending work events, but she was vague about the details. I tried to brush it off, attributing it to stress or a phase she was going through. Maybe she was just feeling restless, needing some space. I didn't want to be the overbearing husband, constantly questioning her whereabouts. I trusted her, or at least I wanted to trust her. But the nagging feeling in the back of my mind wouldn't go away. The first real red flag was the perfume. Gwendoline always wore a light floral scent that I loved. But one evening she came home smelling of something different, something musky and unfamiliar. When I mentioned it, she dismissed it, saying it was a new lotion she'd tried at a friend's house. But I knew she was lying. I could see it in her eyes. Then came the late nights at work. Gwendoline worked as a marketing manager for a local company. She'd always had a demanding job, but recently it seemed to be consuming her life. She'd often come home past midnight, exhausted and stressed. I offered to help with the housework or take on more responsibilities, but she brushed me off, saying she could handle it. One Saturday morning, while Gwendoline was out running errands, I decided to do some laundry. As I was sorting through the clothes, I found a receipt in her jacket pocket. It was from a fancy restaurant downtown, a place we'd only been to once for our anniversary. The date on the receipt was last Tuesday, the same night she'd claimed to be working late. My heart sank. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she'd gone there with a colleague for a business dinner. But the more I thought about it, the less sense it made. Why would she lie about it? Why would she hide the receipt? The doubts I'd been trying to suppress came flooding back, stronger than ever. That night I decided to confront her. When Gwendoline came home, I was waiting for her in the living room. "We need to talk," I said, my voice trembling slightly. She looked at me, her eyes wary. "What is it, Barnaby?" "I'm tired." I held up the receipt. "This. Where were you last Tuesday?" She hesitated for a moment, then stammered, I told you I was working late." "No, you weren't. You were at this restaurant." I pointed to the name on the receipt. "Who were you with, Gwendoline?" She paled, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. "It's not what you think," she said weakly. "Then tell me what it is," I demanded, my voice rising. "Tell me the truth." She sighed, her shoulders slumping. "Okay, fine. I was there with a friend. We were just catching up." "A friend? What friend?" "Someone I know." She avoided my gaze. "It doesn't matter. It was just a harmless dinner." "Harmless? You lied to me, Gwendoline. You hid this from me. How can I trust you when you're not honest with me?" She started to cry. "I'm sorry, Barnaby. I didn't want to hurt you, but you did hurt me," I said, my voice cracking. "You broke my trust, and I don't know if I can ever forgive you for that." That night we slept in separate rooms. I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Was this the end of our marriage? Had everything we built together been a lie? I didn't know what to do. The next few weeks were a blur. Gwendoline and I barely spoke. We moved around each other like strangers in our own home. The tension was unbearable. I tried to talk to her, to understand what was going on, but she remained distant and evasive. I confided in my best friend, Leopold, a divorce lawyer. He listened patiently as I poured out my heart, then offered some practical advice. "Barnaby, I know this is tough, but you need to protect yourself. Start gathering evidence, document everything, and consider talking to a private investigator." I hesitated. The thought of hiring a PI felt like a betrayal, an admission that my marriage was truly over. But I also knew that I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. So with a heavy heart I took Leopold's advice. The PI, a woman named Bront, was professional and discreet. She asked me a lot of questions, gathered information about Gwendoline's routine, and then got to work. A week later she called me with an update. "I have something you need to see, Barnaby. Can you meet me at my office tomorrow morning?" I arrived at Bront's office feeling sick with dread. She led me to a small conference room and handed me a file. "This is what I found," she said, her voice grave. I opened the file and started flipping through the photos. My blood ran cold. There were pictures of Gwendoline with another man, a man I didn't recognize. They were holding hands, kissing, laughing together. They looked like a couple, a happy couple, and it wasn't just one or two photos. There were dozens taken over several weeks at different locations around the city. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The pain was so intense it took my breath away. I stared at the photos, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. My wife, the woman I loved, was having an affair, and she'd been lying to me for months. "Who is he?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "His name is Ignatius," Bront said. "He's a colleague of Gwendoline's. They've been seeing each other for at least 3 months, 3 months. That's how long I'd been living a lie, oblivious to the betrayal that was happening right under my nose. I felt like a fool, a complete and utter idiot. I thanked Bront for her work and left her office, numb with shock and anger. I drove home in a daze, the photos of Gwendoline and Ignatius seared into my brain. I couldn't think, I couldn't feel, I could barely breathe. When I got home, Gwendoline was there cooking dinner. She looked up when I walked in, her expression softening. "Hi, honey, how was your day?" I stared at her, my eyes filled with rage. "Don't call me honey," I said, my voice trembling. "I know everything." She froze, her face turning white. "What? What are you talking about?" I threw the photos on the table. This is what I'm talking about. You and Ignatius. Don't even try to deny it." She looked at the photos, her eyes widening in horror. "Barnaby, I can explain," she stammered. "Explain? What is there to explain? You've been having an affair behind my back. You've been lying to me for months. You've betrayed me in the worst possible way." Tears streamed down her face. "I'm so sorry, Barnaby. I didn't mean for this to happen, but it did happen, Gwendoline. And now our marriage is over," she sobbed, collapsing into a chair. "Please, Barnaby, don't do this. I still love you. I can change. I'll do anything. It's too late, Gwendoline. You've broken my heart. You've destroyed our family. I can never trust you again." I walked out of the house, leaving her sobbing in the kitchen. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there, not for another minute. I spent the night at Leopold's house, trying to make sense of what had happened. He offered me comfort and support, but nothing could ease the pain. I felt like my world had been shattered, my dreams crushed. The woman I loved, the woman I'd built my life with, had betrayed me in the most devastating way imaginable. The next day, I filed for divorce. Gwendoline was devastated. She begged me to reconsider, promising to end the affair and work on our marriage, but I refused. The trust was gone, the love had died. There was nothing left to salvage. The divorce was messy and contentious. Gwendoline fought me every step of the way, trying to get as much as she could. She claimed I was being unreasonable, that I was punishing her for a mistake, but I stood my ground. I wasn't going to let her get away with what she'd done. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, I learned more about Gwendoline's affair. It turned out that Ignatius was also married, and his wife, Tabitha, had no idea about the affair. I felt a pang of sympathy for her. She was just as much a victim as I was. One day, I decided to reach out to Tabitha. I knew it was a risky move, but I felt like she deserved to know the truth. I called her and introduced myself, then told her everything about Gwendoline and Ignatius's affair. She was shocked and heartbroken. She had suspected something was going on, but she hadn't wanted to believe it. She thanked me for telling her the truth, saying it had given her the strength to leave Ignatius. Together, Tabitha and I decided to expose Gwendoline and Ignatius's affair to their colleagues and friends. We sent anonymous emails with the photos Bront had taken, revealing their betrayal to everyone they knew. The fallout was swift and brutal. Gwendoline and Ignatius were ostracized at work, their reputations ruined. Ignatius's wife left him, taking their children with her. Gwendoline's friends turned their backs on her, disgusted by her behavior. I know some people might say that what Tabitha and I did was petty or vindictive, but I don't regret it. Gwendoline and Ignatius had caused so much pain and suffering, they deserved to face the consequences of their actions. They had destroyed our marriages, our families, and our lives. It was only fair that they should pay the price. After the divorce was finalized, I moved out of the house and started a new life. It wasn't easy. I struggled with loneliness and depression, but I was determined to move on, to heal, and to find happiness again. I started seeing a therapist, who helped me process my emotions and rebuild my self-esteem. I reconnected with old friends, pursued new hobbies, and focused on my career. Slowly but surely, I started to feel like myself again. One day, about a year after the divorce, I ran into Gwendoline at a coffee shop. She looked tired and worn, her eyes filled with regret. She apologized for what she'd done, saying she realized she'd made a terrible mistake. I listened to her, but I didn't say much. I couldn't forgive her, not completely, but I also didn't hate her. I realized that I had moved on, that I was no longer defined by her betrayal. "I hope you find happiness, Gwendoline," I said as I turned to leave. "You too, Barnaby," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. I walked away, feeling a sense of closure. The pain was still there, but it was no longer consuming me. I had survived the betrayal, and I had emerged stronger and wiser. I knew that I would never be the same, but I also knew that I could still find love and happiness again. And that was enough. Years later, I did find love again. Her name was Orlia, and she was everything Gwendoline wasn't: honest, kind, and loyal. We married and built a new life together, filled with love, laughter, and trust. I never forgot what Gwendoline had done, but I didn't let it define me. I learned from my experience, and I used it to become a better man, a better husband, and a better father. And in the end, that's all that really mattered. This story is a reminder that betrayal can happen to anyone, even in the most seemingly perfect relationships. But it's also a story about resilience, about the power of forgiveness, and about the possibility of finding happiness again, even after the most devastating heartbreak. Remember, you are not alone, and you are stronger than you think. Never let someone else's actions define your worth or your future.